Awesome. All right. All right, we're being recorded now, so if anyone is careful about that, please do your due diligence. And I'll turn it over to you, Sandra, to introduce our host, and we'll begin our talks.
Okay, I thought you said you were going to host, but that's okay.
Well, I'm going to maintain it as host, but you have the info, and you do a great job introducing people, so I want to turn that part over to you.
We'll do this. Okay, all right. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Jordan, for taking time out of your busy day, especially on Golden Week, to present for us. Very much looking forward to what you have to say. So, yeah, please go ahead. We're all ears.
Sure, thank you so much. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. And okay, ooh, it's been a long time since I used Zoom. Okay. Let's see. There we go. All right, can everybody see that okay? Looks all right.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, well, good evening, everyone. Tonight I'm going to be talking about just conducting extensive reading in class. Just wanted to share some examples of activities that I do in class using extensive reading as kind of the center of integrated and 4 skills reading tasks. And that's something I'm going to be doing again this term. So I wanted to just share with everybody. And before that, though, I'm not really acquainted with many of you here. So just a little bit about myself first. I'm from the US, Colorado Springs, Colorado. If you've ever been out that way, we've got some nice mountains out there. I've been teaching in Japan for about 10 years and living here same amount of time. I've been doing a lot of things here and there. English conversation school. You can see the list here. The only thing is like elementary school and younger kids. I don't have a lot of experience, and I'm not sure if that's exactly quite for me, but kudos to all of you younger teachers out there for younger learners. And I have graduated just a couple of years ago from Temple University, Japan. I'm sure many of you have heard of it and possibly even gone there as well. So I enjoyed the program, and I enjoyed hearing what other educators had to say, sharing ideas. So I hope to see everyone around as well in the future. So just to give you an idea of the context in which I'm teaching extensive reading, one of my main jobs now is at a vocational school, which is, of course, a 2-year program. And the extensive reading is part of the first year program. So it's about 18, 19-year-old students with the occasional non-traditional student in there, but the vast majority is going to be right out of high school. And it's a reading and writing class that has a extensive reading aspect to it. I first taught it 5 years ago. That was my first time at the school. And I just saw it on the syllabus, and I kind of thought, just tell the students they have to do it, and then they would kind of sort it out by themselves. That did not go exactly how I planned. And I got called in by my superior teacher. He asked me, why aren't any of your students doing the extensive reading? And so I had to kind of change my approach from that moment on. I haven't taught it in a couple of years, but now again, this term, I was assigned this class, so I'm taking it from this term, teaching it currently. And so I used this opportunity to talk to some of the other teachers in the program because before each term, we kind of have a short course workshop where the um, supervisor briefs us on like the syllabus and we exchange ideas about the course and things like this. And as always, extensive reading was brought up, the extensive reading aspect. And basically, the consensus is students don't like extensive reading. Things like this in Japanese, dame mendokusai, also yada is a very big one. These seem to have become collocations of extensive reading here. So students are, it's very unpopular with the students. And so as the saying goes, we know that it's very beneficial to students, but we can bring the horse to water. We can't always necessarily make it drink. Okay. So as I said, I was able to talk to many of the teachers and kind of see what they do with extensive reading in their class. Took some notes and kind of made this Venn diagram looking thing. For the not in class part, this is what people were mostly doing in their classes. Just setting weekly reminders and goals for the students. What happens is every term they have a target to reach for their extensive reading words. And basically they're given a score based on how much of that target they complete. So just setting weekly reminders and goals for the students, setting realistic timelines in how quickly they can do that reading. They sometimes assign book reports, but completely outside of class, they just read it, write a report, and then turn it in. And they try to just focus on the grades. So kind of remind the students that they are being graded. And if they don't do it, it will affect their score. Then I made this kind of in-between category, like a semi-in-class kind of thing, where they did most of the reading outside class, but then took a little bit of discussion time in class. This teacher was doing what he called book talks, which was just talking about the book, basically. The book talks talking about the book, setting characters, what happened, basically. Reviewing the books for other students, maybe if they would recommend reading it or not, and just giving summaries and things like that. And then the full like kind of in-class things would be also book talks. They would read in class and then talk about it after, or they might just give time to do the reading in class, but not really make any sort of activity on it, just to give them time to read and get maybe some extra words in 15, 20 minutes, something like that. So these are some of the things that other teachers in the course were doing as far as the extensive reading aspect. Let's see. As for me, I do like to bring it into the class. And here's some of the reasons why. First, the students are really, really busy at this particular school. They have 2 years, but they do need about the same amount of credits as a 4-year university. So they're very, very busy. They're getting a lot of work from other classes. And also, most of them have part-time jobs. And so they always complain that they don't have time to do the reading. So that's number one. Number two, the motivation is pretty low for reading, especially at the lower level. There's usually, I would say, 5 or 6 people out of 20 who always get the full score, and then descending down to maybe 3 or 4 who don't do really any of the reading outside of what I do with them in class. So it's kind of a mixed bag, I guess, of motivation, but a lot of it is they're not really fond of it. So the third reason is just for camaraderie, for a little bit of group work. It's a solitary kind of activity, reading by yourself, and they could be doing other things. I don't know what these students are doing these days. Instagram, TikTok, I don't know, working, games, who knows. But bringing it into class lets people get together. They're doing the reading together. They're doing some group work together. It makes it kind of more just dynamic in that they can actually do something else with it than just kind of reading. The fourth reason is just to show students that they can read rather quickly. Some of these activities, they really only take maybe between 15 and 30 minutes, depending on the length of the book you choose, and up to maybe 1,500 words. And they can do that pretty quickly. And so when they realize that they can do that in one sitting, 30 minutes, they're like, okay, I can do this sometimes. So it kind of helps them to get into that mentality. And then the last reason is just so that I know that they read. Sometimes we use Xreading, so sometimes Xreading can be easy to circumnavigate as far as getting the word count. So at least I know that they read, I see them participating, and I know that they're engaged with the text. So that's kind of why I lean to getting some in for class time. Let's see what's next. Okay. And the last part about talking with the teachers of the same program, they listed some different challenges here. First one, which is, I think, near the top of all teacher challenges, is just that there's time constraints. Our time is not infinite in class. And following that, there's a lot of other things to do, the class syllabus, goals, and we do have assignments that we are required to do that are part of their main scores. So we always have time for other things. And yeah, just the student perceptions of extensive reading, like I said, they seem to just really not take to it so well at the beginning. Oh yeah, and this is just a quick note. I do use Xreading, like I mentioned, and they access it through their device. They used to have iPads, but now they have Microsoft Surface, so all reading is done basically digitally, unless I print it out for them, which is very rarely. Let's see. Okay, so these are just some really, really general things here. Let's see. Yeah, the first activities are things that you might do with any other type of reading, really. So there's not really any reason you couldn't do it with extensive reading. Things like practicing input and output skills, checking comprehension, and then of course the output, which is always the focus of these types of 4 skills lessons and activities. So summarization and prediction tasks, which are very general reading activities, I feel. We're just bringing them through extensive reading materials. So I'll talk about summarization first here. I like to use pictures. You can see that they're processing the input and visualizing a story, conceptualizing them with visual cues. And then they can use their own drawings as sort of a presentation to summarize and paraphrase and share with other students. And of course, students may enjoy a break from all the writing that they do in a writing class, especially artistically inclined students really like to kind of show off what they can write and draw. So for these, I use Google Jamboard, but I learned, if you're familiar with that, that it's going to be taken down soon. So I'm looking into like an alternative now, maybe Microsoft Whiteboard. There's a few other suggestions that I found online, but I will see how that goes. Anyway, so this disclaimer is I chose this particular student's slides because she's very good at drawing. But some of the ones, if you choose to do some kind of activity like this, are going to be very low quality. So don't always expect such a nice drawing. So this is a example here. They read the tortoise and the hare and the tortoise, I guess. I think it was, I think that day it was a low level class. So I assigned like up to maybe 500-word book. And there's a lot of these on Xreading, like a collection of fables. Um, and so this was the hare and the tortoise. And then she also did, there was another tale included in that. And so basically she would read and she would make her drawing, which was very, very nice. And she would use her drawings to kind of tell her classmates what she read, paraphrasing mostly, summarizing. I told them not to use words if possible. Sometimes it's very difficult to convey without words. So this time she wrote a short conversation. I think the tortoise wanted the eagle to carry it somewhere. The eagle wanted something in return, and the tortoise replied with, "Of course, of course." Okay. So just something like this. And basically, the students were able to read and draw and present within 25 minutes of a 90-minute class. A really quick way to get 400, 500 words, more engaging than just kind of making them do it and then having them take the quiz on Xreading and then having it finished. So you can still practice things that you would have them practice in any other reading or speaking activity, summarization, things like that, just through the means of extensive reading. So not really reinventing the wheel or anything, just kind of making it into extensive reading as the main material in the activity. So the other one was prediction. Basically, the same, just like I did in any other academic reading or some other reading material. Having the students predict what's going to happen to give them a reason to read and pay attention. They like this kind of thing. They want to be right. They want to guess right, or they want to guess some kind of outlandish thing and make everybody laugh. That's also fine. And it gives students the expectation of possible language narratives, things that they're going to be reading about. And Xreading often has books that have illustrations, and I basically just cut that out from digitally and put it in a slide and then post it on Google Classroom so they can look at everything at the same time. So I let them basically have the context of the title as well. And then they can just look through, they can see all the pictures in sequence. They can start forming some kind of plot line here. And this one is quite difficult. I just took this one as an example today, but it seems like it might be interesting. Ghost out of the middle of nowhere came and just make some pre-reading predictions before getting into the book by themselves. And then they would read it, of course, and then have another activity at the end. You know, what was different from what you thought, kind of thing. And for, yeah, these two types of activities like summarization and prediction, I do let them read uninterrupted. So it would be, oh, okay. Perhaps we'll look at the question later, sorry. Where was I? Yeah, uninterrupted. So they would basically read uninterrupted and then make a summary and then predict and then read. So we're letting them go without any pauses in the middle. There we go. Too far. All right, so for longer in-class readings, I'll split the text in maybe half, sometimes more if it's really long. And we'll take a look at some checkpoint questions in between. It's what I call them. I'm sure I'm not the first person to think about this, but I'm not sure if they have an official name. So I'm coining this one, checkpoint questions. So I refer to Bloom's taxonomy here if you're familiar with it. There's different types of questions and ones that require higher order thinking and lower order thinking skills. For extensive reading, I feel it has a distinct advantage because the understanding part should be relatively easy in the nature of extensive reading. So I think that instead of spending a lot of their cognitive power just trying to figure out what it means, they can kind of think of higher order questions. And so I try to keep my checkpoint questions around the applying, analyzing, evaluating, creating level of questions. So just to give you an example, they might read maybe halfway through and then answer some questions like this, like what would you do in this situation? What do you think would happen if the main character did this? Or what advice would you give to the main character at this point? Then going on to analysis type questions, more predicting what do you think would happen next and some reasons why. How do you think this story would change in a different setting, a different time? What do you think Princess Bari would do if she lived in Japan in 2024? What would happen? Next would be evaluating, which is which character do you want to be friends with and why? Do you think the main character made a good decision? And were you satisfied with the ending? So these like evaluating type questions. And then of course we have the creating, which would be the kind of written production task really at the end of the reading. So maybe rewrite the story from another character's perspective, rewrite the ending. Sometimes I have them just read and then stop, then write the ending and then compare their ending to the real ending. Or something like this, write a sequel maybe, same characters, a different problem happens, what do they do? So basically following reading activity structure for, yeah, any other reading, like I said, except now we're using extensive reading and we can use kind of these higher order questions because the reading should be simple enough for them to understand. The last thing I wanted to talk about was kind of integrating extensive reading into classroom projects, because this was one of the challenges that the other teachers had mentioned and that I've also experienced as well. Like I said, we do have different things that we must do in the class, different goals that we have to reach for the curriculum. This is from this class's syllabus a couple years ago, but it hasn't changed too much. One of the things here is like a narrative paragraph or a narrative essay. And so I kind of thought maybe there was a good example of something that I could use from Xreading, or something that could be used to teach narrative writing, setting, rising action, climax, things like this. And I looked around a bit, and I did come across something, and it was actually a recommendation from a previous student who was doing Xreading, and she enjoyed these like choose your own adventure stories. And she showed me this one, Zombies in Tokyo here. 2,781 words, 8 different endings. And it was actually pretty good. I used this in my lowest level. They didn't really have any problems with the reading. So it was good for that, and interesting topic. So it might even be good for higher levels as well, just given the age. So basically what we did was all the students read until the decision point, and then they discussed what they should do, and then they broke up into groups based on what they chose, and then they continued basically until all the endings were found. You can't actually take the Xreading quiz until all the endings are found. So if someone ended up ending soon or possibly dying in their adventure, they would trickle out to other groups and then see what they could do until all the endings were found. And so we did that in class. Took really less than 45 minutes to do that, discussing reading 2,700 words, less than 45 minutes. And then, so this is where the writing part came in. They did their own choose your adventure stories. I had them do 4 different endings just because it was a lower level class. And then they were able to finish that and read other group stories. We did the whole writing process. We did drafting, and then they revised and all that. And then I was emphasizing, the narrative kind of conventions there. And so basically, they came out kind of like this. This was a project by 3 girls here, vampires in Tokyo instead of zombies in Tokyo. And basically, I had them draft out their story, and then they copied and pasted it into a PowerPoint slide, and kind of ended up like this. So it started, here's their story, and then at the end of the slide, you have 2 choices. You can talk to Rocky, or you can apparently just stare at Rocky. And then you would make your choice. It's actually a link to another slide in the presentation. And so you make your choice, you go to the next one, and it just continues like this. There's only 4 endings, so I think there's only 2 choices, really. But this is basically what the finished product looked like. And yeah, they enjoyed it. They had some fun, and all of it was also incorporating their Xreading into this whole entire project. So, and Xreading has a lot of options. They have nonfiction, they have informative books, they have books about like animals or places, things like that. They have classic literature. So if there's some kind of project or type of essay genre that you have to do or teach, there is probably something that you could use as an example to kind of incorporate that into the project as a whole. Let's see. Okay, so just in conclusion here, if we treat ER materials in class like any other reading materials, and build activities from them, we can kind of in a way promote extensive reading to students, ensure that they're completing their reading, kind of have them do their higher end thinking with these types of questions, and also produce useful output such as summarization, paraphrasing, using their own words to tell what happened in the story. So going back to the challenges I mentioned before, basically the time constraints, a lot of these activities don't take too long. I know junior high and high school is maybe 50 minutes, an hour. So that might be a little bit different there. But even if you use like a short book, you could go 15 minutes, maybe tops. Yeah, we were doing almost 1,000-word books in less than 30 minutes. So it should be pretty quick. As far as following the syllabus, you can try to set a project around some kind of chosen book, and just try to make it fit well into the curriculum or the syllabus as a whole. And student perceptions of Xreading, they can engage with the text in a way they can't do it by themselves, just kind of doing the extensive reading on their own at home, in the train or something. It just makes it a little bit more engaging and fun for them overall, and hopefully translates to them doing more on their own outside of class. So anyway, I hope it was even a tiny bit useful to take a look at some of these. Maybe you got your own ideas going in your minds right now. And so, yeah, if you ever face a situation where students really like to avoid their extensive reading, I hope you don't hesitate to bring it into the classroom with these types of activities. So thank you very much. Happy reading and happy teaching to everyone.
Thank you very much. And yes, it was more than a tiny bit useful.
I hope so. I hope so.
It's always interesting and valuable to hear about other people's experiences, especially when you're facing classes who are perhaps not as motivated as other classes. So you survived, and that's in itself a very valuable lesson for all of us.
Thank you for that validation. Yes, I survived. I survived.
So you said that you're not currently doing it, but you will be doing it again soon.
Well, I'm started from this term, so starting a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
And I guess my main question is like, what are you going to be doing differently? So from the previous experience, obviously you've learned a lot from that. Is there anything that you are planning to do differently this time, or add, or things that you've learned?
That is a great question. Like, we've had a couple weeks, and basically in the class plan, the first week was like introductions. Second week, I introduced them to the textbook because that class also has a textbook for the like academic and intensive reading. So I haven't had too much time with the students. I've been trying to kind of gauge where they're at as far as the reading. I think I'm just gonna try a few like general things, like a few of the activities I showed today, see how they take to it, and see how they are with responding to the extensive reading, because that starts after Golden Week. So we're going to introduce it after Golden Week. So
do you think the motivation will be different this time? So like at the class that you're doing it with now, are they a similar level, or do they feel, I mean, I know it's early days, but yeah, how does it compare with previous classes so far?
I think It's a difficult class. They're very quiet. They're very quiet. I've had lower level classes, but they were very expressive, we shall say. And um, most of the time, it went pretty well. That was the class that did the choose your own adventure kind of thing, and they really liked it. So I'll try to do probably something like that again um, this time around.
I think it's a really good idea, actually, the choose your own adventure. I think that works very well in a group setting to be able to work together in a group to create a storyline. So, yeah, and using PowerPoint, that's a great idea, being able to link slides and things like that.
It just so happened, yeah. I was because I'm usually before I didn't really make PowerPoint slides in class, and then uh, I kind of started favoring making them because it's an easy visual and the students can look at it and kind of they can read it also and kind of understand what's going on even when I'm giving some kind of instruction. So I've been recently leaning towards like PowerPoint. And then I was just looking at different options I could use. Oh, I can link this. Oh, I can link this. And then at the same time, that student had recommended me this story. And I was like, oh, I think I can do this. So it was just kind of two things happened at the same time. And it kind of like, I was like, oh, okay, I think that's a good idea. So
And is the course, is it one semester long or 2 semesters, or how long does the course
so
run?
how it happens is they take the same course year round. So it follows the same basic um, timeline as like a high school. So it has April to August, or is it? Yeah, April. I guess August is off, so April, July, and then start again in September to December, and then it has that weird like January to February like short term. So it has that, but then they change teachers every term. So I only have one term with one class.
But they continue the program.
They continue the same class, yeah, but it's very like, well, as you could have maybe seen from the small Venn diagram I made, not everyone is doing the exact same thing as far as, well, everything really, extensive reading or other aspects of the class. So uh, it's very different. So I don't know exactly how the other teacher might continue with their X reading at that point. Yeah.
So how many teachers are actually in the program, roughly? I mean, you know,
For the first year program, I would say maybe 12.
that's quite a few.
Yeah, there's 12 classes, I believe.
And all of those classes, to some extent, are including extensive reading in the program.
Yes, yes. Basically, they have a target word count. And then if that target word count is there in their X reading records at the end of the term, then they're okay as far as the percentage of that particular aspect.
So what is the word count? What kind of
Uh,
targets do you set?
you know what? I will check right now. I thought it was about when I was doing it before, it was about like 40. I don't want to guess. I want to tell you exactly here. Um, how many words do they need? Wow, it went down,
Oh,
I think. Yeah, I did. So before, I was pretty sure that the lowest level was doing 40,000,
Mm-hmm.
and then it would go up in about 20,000 increments from there. But it looks like this term is only 20.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's a big change. And that's how many weeks for one term? Is that
that's 15 weeks.
15 weeks?
Yeah, but I mean, minus the two that we haven't done X reading yet.
Right, of course.
Yeah, that seems low.
That does seem rather low, but I guess somebody must have made that decision for a reason, one
I
would
guess
think.
so.
Of course, that's just the target. Students can read more than that.
Yeah, I might raise that myself.
Yeah, well, there you go. Good to think about that before launching after Golden Week.
Yeah.
So uh, the books you're using on Xreading, just have
Mhm.
you had a look at the books? Do you read some of the books?
Yeah, especially the ones that we're going to use for in class. I look for, well, I start looking for the word count and then, well, level first and then word count. The search function in X rating is a little unreliable, but if you dig a little bit, you can find something. So usually for lower levels, I try to aim for 5 to 700 about, um, and something easy topic for them, so that it's easy for them to talk about and summarize pretty simply. So yeah, I'll look for something myself before we actually use it in class.
And do you know, like, are there any series or genres or types of books that are more popular than others for your class
Um,
that you've noticed?
well, uh, the fables, things like that are popular mostly because uh, the sentences are really short and they're easy to understand. And a lot of the time they have at least heard some version of the story, so they kind of know what's going on already. Um, what's pop? I know a few of the series that are popular with like level one students because they actually kind of get into it and they can they have access to more maybe interesting types of content. But for low levels, I've mostly taught lower levels, and they they don't really they don't really care. They just want to do it. So they just pick something and they read it and then they're done with it. So
So you really don't
um,
have a class of people who enjoy reading English a lot, is what you're saying.
not really, not really. Hopefully we can change that a little bit. But the textbook topics are also quite dry. So we
Uh,
try to make them as exciting as possible, but it's one of those things that
what
just
textbook are you using for the
um
intensive reading?
active reading.
Okay.
Yeah. For that one, it's not the intro, it's level one. Yeah, active level one.
Very interesting. So, Kimberly, perhaps you'd like to
Yeah,
read
there was
out your,
something.
because that's quite quite a long thing there that you've, if you could perhaps uh, read out what you've written there, save us all the.
Not that long.
Okay.
I was just when you're talking about the the predictions and like how they like respond to that and how they there seems to be quite a positive activity that they do that they quite enjoy. And I thought, well, it's always interesting to publish on those kinds of things where students had like a good response to the activity and that kind of thing. And there is a theoretical foundation for that. So I wondered if maybe you had thought about publishing. I would recommend writing something up.
Great.
As far as I know, that kind of thing has never been applied to L2 English reading. So it would be like a new application of the theory. You could, really expand it. Yeah.
All right, I'll write this down. Rosenblatt transactional theory.
Kimberly, would you like to comment on Rosenblatt's transactional theory of reading
so
for the rest of the class?
Oh, sorry. Do excuse me, it's
with
11 p.m. here. So this is like one of the most like seminal theories of how native speakers read.
Okay.
And when they do reading. It's very influential and very well regarded. And Rosenblatt's she died a few years ago, maybe 10 years or so ago. But yeah, since she published this in like the 70s, it's just been like underpinning a lot of the way that people who do research, like like literature research for native speakers, L1 speakers, they use this theory like a lot to analyze texts and what readers are doing and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's quite a nice theory. I quite like it. It fits in well with extensive reading and that kind of thing. So
that's great. Always thinking about things that I could possibly look into more and possibly publish as well. So yeah, thank you.
Does anyone else have a question? Please speak up.
I was wondering about the stories you had the kids write. Thank you, by the way. Great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lots of food for thought. But the books that you had kids write and put them on the PowerPoint slides and whatever, did you share them somehow so each of the kids could read what the other groups wrote and follow through? And yeah.
Yes, that was the final thing that they did. So they shared it with each other. I basically just posted them on Google Classroom, which is what we use for giving assignments digitally and for their submission as well. So yeah, just they gave it to me and then I made it public on there. And then they looked at each other's stories, they followed through, and then they were able to choose from those choices and then find which ending they went to. And I think one group you couldn't really win because you died in all 4 endings, so they were a bit cruel.
Bit of a dark group. That's right. Oh, nice. Great. Yeah, I really like that. I really like that idea. And lots of your questions as well. I didn't get a chance to write all of them down, but some really good, creation and evaluation and writing a sequel and all those kinds of things were really, really good. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, Pat.
Hi there. First of all, I'd like to apologize for having my microphone on while I was walking home. I was listening but not watching, so I didn't realize it was on. Sorry about that. The projects that you do sound really familiar. I do something very, very similar. And like you said, it works really well for... Hold on a second. My son just turned on the TV really loud. Okay. For kind of getting them interested in the books that they've been reading by making something of their own that's similar. And the kind of gated stories that you talked about, the Atama ebooks, like Zombies in Tokyo, they really lend themselves to a project like that, because to work together with people on a narrative, it uses a whole lot of time for somebody to write the beginning, and then the next person has to wait for that to be finished before they can progress. But those stories, they can move in tandem so that you don't lose so much time. Something that you might enjoy doing in the future is actually printing out the books. So I use PowerPoint slides like you did. But what I did is I split each slide up so it's kind of on a right side illustration and left side text, and then I just printed those out, folded them, glued them to each other, and put a little bit of binding tape on the back. And for one class, usually we have a class at the end of the semester where they kind of review and reflect on what they've done. That was their book exhibition day. So all of their books are placed around the room. They have a chance to kind of almost like a rotating poster session, move with their friends, read a book, and they had a chance to write post-it notes to add to all the books. So things that they thought were really interesting, funny, things they didn't understand. And I would photocopy all those notes onto one page and then make that an integral part of the book for when they get a copy. So
Great. Yeah,
but
it's
validating for me to hear somebody else doing a very similar project.
for me as well. For me as well.
Oh, thank you, Jordan.
Sure. No, yeah, I agree with that totally. And it's funny too how I think some students really prefer paper, actually, like having paper, something like a copy to have. Um, Funny story is a different class just this term. Um, I had them, you know, like at the on the inside of their textbook, they have the little code you can scratch off, and then you go to the publisher's website, and then you can use the ebook. And then I was like, okay, so now you guys can use the ebook. You don't have to bring like this heavy book to class anymore. Um, but then after like one class of trying to use it, everybody just brought their book anyway, and they preferred writing on it, like having something in front of them, like that's just there and tangible. And I think they enjoy that. And so yeah, with the books as well, not even just having it in a PowerPoint, but something they can actually flip through and see and look at and be like, oh, hey, I made this right here. So I think that's a good idea. Yeah.
Does your school have any paper books, or are you fully on Xreading?
They do have paper books, but it's not really as big of a selection as one might like. Um, like high schools that I've been to and taught at have bigger libraries than that particular vocational school does. So it's, and I think aside from like extensive reading, we more have like TOEIC and like other books like that. So grammar books and things. So I think our extensive reading library is a bit lacking as far as physical copies.
So who set up the program? It sounds like it's been going for a while. Is this something that has been around for a long time, or are you aware of how it began or when it began?
As far as the extensive reading, I'm not really sure. Um, I think, yeah, I'm not sure when it started. I was there 5 years ago, was my first year teaching over there, 2019, and it was already in place. So the program has changed somewhat in that time, but I'm not really sure how it was before that and when extensive reading was introduced or anything like that, really.
So just another thing, I was really interested about the drawing response that you use. So I think it's a great idea. Students love drawing, and but I was wondering, how do you control the amount of time? Because quite often you can get like spend a bit too much time with the colored pencil type thing rather than actually reading or producing something. Yeah. How do
Right.
you control that urge to just want to draw for an hour?
Well, they do have a time limit. So especially like that particular one was yeah, like I said, 500 words or so. And then um so that time in that type of case, I just kind of give them a level and a word amount. And then they would go and search Xreading by themselves and choose a book, read it, and then make their little drawing. Um, they do have a time limit, usually just depending on other reading activities that we've done and kind of how long it usually takes them to finish. And then I don't really give them a lot of time to draw because if I do, like you said, they'll like go into really like detailed things and make colors and all this like really fancy type stuff. So um, yeah, I just tell them to keep it simple, do it quickly, and then we all start in our like a pair or a group just to summarize with each other. Um, so yeah, just a time. But she was really fast, and she made that really quickly. So it was sometimes very amazing how fast they can read, well, and that particular student draw something so well. Yeah.
It's also nice to have an activity that perhaps uh, not everyone's great at drawing, but the people who are perhaps don't get the chance to really do that ever. So it's probably quite nice for them too to be able to express themselves in a way that they feel comfortable.
Right, right. Yeah. And then they always everyone always looks at the ones with really nice pictures and yeah. So it's also a way, yeah, for them to stand out.
Jackie, yeah.
Um, I was also wondering, you said you let them choose their book. Do you tell them about it before class, or because I have kids who could spend an hour just looking for a book and never settling on one. So yeah, is that like homework, choose your book, or yeah, anyway,
That's probably a good idea. I'll do that next time. But yeah, like you said, there's I think not only in book choosing, but any kind of choosing or thinking about something, there's always a few students who are taking the maximum amount of time. So I think that is a good idea. I should probably do that next time. But I just usually tell them, okay, we're gonna do X. I do tell them we're gonna do Xreading, but not exactly what. So um, they just log in and then I tell them, okay, I tell them like what search to put in. So like, okay, click this level right here and then um, just show them the things that they should, how they should filter their search. And then, yeah, just rush them basically. So like, okay, have you chosen one? Have you chosen one? No. Okay, we're starting 5, 4, 3. Do you have one? Okay, like that kind of thing. So,
yeah,
but
yeah,
it's
yeah.
probably
I
more
do lots of
efficient.
counting as well.
Yeah, yeah,
8, 7, yeah. Uh, but you, I'm guessing you set up an assignment in Xreading for them to do this. So you could filter the library for them at the beginning as well, right? So they can't see everything anyway, which would help, like only level whatever, or only like
Right.
what
Right.
it would be by level. So yeah, okay, okay. Right. Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
Nice, nice.
And you said you use Jamboard for that at the moment.
I did. Yeah.
So you're looking for something else, and what do you do with the pictures? So is that something that forms part of it, like an assignment, or is that, yeah, how do you deal with that?
They also submit that on Google Classroom. And then, well, that's basically how I have, sometimes we don't do groups, but then some people will do it in like kind of two big groups, and then we have the monitor that they can actually show it on, and then they can do it that way instead of pairs sometimes. So they do show me, and I kind of just check their book, and if they actually drew something that was relevant to what they read, and yeah, if they wrote anything, if it was too much, and then they just read what the words were, because I tell them not to do that as well. But the pictures themselves, I don't really give them like I don't know, marking or anything for, of course, but just the overall kind of activity and
Participation.
yes, yes.
You actually did it. Yeah. Okay. If you're looking for something else other than Jamboard, perhaps you could try OTJ, Online Teaching Japan. If you put a post on there on Facebook, somebody might be able to help you with that if you haven't already.
Yeah, I just learned about this like this week because I wanted to go back, and because it's all saved on Google Drive because it's a Google application. So I went back to my old class to find that rabbit picture, and then yeah, it just said there was a banner, and it was like, oh, Google Jamboard is not gonna be here in October. And I was like, oh, it's very, very convenient, that kind of application. So uh, definitely looking for something else.
Yeah,
Have you
there's
done it on
definitely.
paper? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Just gonna say there's definitely about 5 or 6 people who are regular contributors to OTJ, Online Teaching Japan, who use Jamboard and are actively looking for a replacement right now, I think. So you can probably hook up with them and hopefully find something in the meantime.
Yeah, I mean, I have until October, so at least for the first term, I'll be able to use it. But yeah, it was I think perfect in its simplicity. I think so. It was easy to use. You could make like slide like presentations with it, and you could, if you knew how to do it well, you could make pictures like that as well. So it was really nice.
Jackie, what were you wanting to say?
I was just just thinking about old school pen and paper, because most my students, most of them have computers, but usually they come with just a smartphone, and then it's too small for doing any kind of whatever. So I was thinking of doing just with paper, like give them, I don't know, some kind of manga, fill in the boxes for this story or whatever, and then use that. I've done something like that in the past and it was really good, but the whole time limit thing is very crucial for that, because I ran into that problem as well. Like let's go. You're still on box one. We need to present. Like, so, yeah, okay.
Always. Yeah.
Mm, so,
I see Noriko suggested Padlet. Yes. Also quite a popular one to be using.
Noriko, do you have
Miro?
this one
Yeah.
too? Yeah, Miro.
Yeah.
I
forgot about Miro.
looked into as well. Yeah.
Yes, I remember trying it out a few years ago, but never quite got into it. So they still send me lots of emails though. Any other questions? Greg, I think you.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Jordan, I'm always curious to ask everybody, and you know what? I think I'm going to ask this to everyone who does presenters from now on.
Okay.
How do you explain the concept of ER to your students? What do you do to tell them what the activity is, what the reason is, the rationale is, and so on?
So yeah, that is going back to Sandra's very first question for me. That's actually something that I wanted to change this year because I hadn't been doing that before. And especially with from Noriko's presentation last month, like we emphasize TOEIC a lot at this particular school. So just kind of approaching it that way, like reading fluency, scores like this, like there's a lot of benefits that you can get from this if we are doing it well and frequently. So I haven't yet thought too deeply about how to present all of this information to students, but that is something that I would like to change when we introduce it, just what this is and why we're doing it. So,
Right. Yeah, I find it helpful to tell the students explicitly what it is, and it's a very simple one. And sometimes I have to resort to some Japanese to do it. And I ask them about their favorite genres too, because I think sometimes that helps focus in a lot of people's minds that, oh, teacher is telling me to read a book. I don't know what to read. And then having a talk about what they like to watch on TV or watching movies, YouTube, TikTok already helps to focus in what things they might like to read. And also going to the classroom activities or parts of the grading, I have my students do a poster on one of the books that they read, and they seem to like that very much. And give them really specific parameters about what the poster should be. They have a photocopy of the front of the book, which I don't think violates anything. A summary, their favorite character, and who they recommend it to. And that, I think, gets them engaged in at least one text to get them thinking, well, who would like this book, or how do I explain it, and so on. So that, and that's an outside class activity that I have them do. And this year, I'm going to incorporate having them explain the poster themselves. So I want to involve a speaking component to that too. So that's something else that you might consider. I love Jackie's idea of the manga. That's a great idea. But we don't want to make it an art class unless they're artists already, and then that's something they can get onto. But I think Jackie has a great idea with the manga panels there. I love that. All right, well, that's me. Okay, that's all I get.
if they are artists, it takes even longer.
Nah,
So it's probably best if
you're
they're
right,
not.
because I want to really get into
Then
it.
they really want to, they get very detailed. Yeah. So
Nice.
probably best if it's stick figures.
You're right.
Yeah.
that's the way I always go.
Yeah. Pat, you've got your hand up there. Would you like to say something?
Yeah. As far as like making illustrations that kind of line between how much detail is too much detail is always really tough. But with generative AI right now and text to images, you can have that desire for more detail turn into more language. So my students starting last year, after they made their books, they had rounds where they would illustrate them, and they were doing it with Stable Diffusion last year. And you'd see two kids working at a computer, writing in what they want and writing it again because it didn't look exactly how they wanted it, so they changed a word. So that could be a kind of happy medium between being able to have the look that they want, but still focusing on English.
That's great too. Because...
Although it is equally a rabbit hole. So it definitely has to be planned into a project to almost take up a full class period. So it's definitely not something that the students are able to get through in 15 or 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's challenging. I've messed around a little bit with that kind of AI image generation, and also just like the ChatGPT version as well. And yeah, sometimes you have to be really, really precise with what you want, or else it's gonna not work. So it is a challenge.
I sometimes use the manga drawing response for junior high school students for homework. Like, so it's done out of the classroom and then presented in the classroom. So that's sometimes a way I get around indulging their love of drawing, but also sort of restricting the amount of time, class time, that's actually used for that drawing. So it's more of a presentation, but yeah. Now, is there anybody else who've got any comments or any questions that you'd like to make? Or perhaps we could conclude the recorded section of this talk. Thank you so much, Jordan. Greg, would you like to pause the recording there? And yes, everybody, round of